Okay, there's a couple of 9/32 holes there and there. Again, I think they come out pretty symmetrical, and I do like symmetry. So next step is to stuff the LEDs up in there. Okay, grommets are installed, and I always like to stick a little screwdriver in them and go round and round a little to make sure they're expanded out and seated correctly. So round and round. Next thing is just to push the LEDs up from behind, and I think I'll use a little bit of pledge on those too to get them to slide up easily. I'm sure the pledge will dry out eventually, and it won't be an issue. Okay, the next task is to attack the rear turn signals. So the instructions indicate that you need to loosen the rear signals up. There's one bolt up on top right here, and then there's, of course, they're both the Torx T30s, and there's another bolt underneath right down here. So got both of those open or off, and now you can pull the there we go. Now you can pull it back far enough to get down inside to the wiring down here, and instructions indicate that, let me get that pulled up, there we go, that'll keep it open. The instructions tell you to follow the original route of the wiring as much as possible. That original wiring goes up along the top here somehow. Have no idea how it goes in, but looks like I'll have to maybe pull some more panels and or the back seat and some access panels out of here to have a look. Anyway, that's the next task. We're getting closer. This has actually been a fairly long job, so I'm anxious to see how it comes out. Everything looks good right now. So anyway, that's the check-in for this time. Okay, I'll give you a little progress report. I've got the cable routed for the rear turn signals, and I'll give you a look at the routing for it. When you do this, you'll want to have a fish tape or at least some baling wire handy. Here's one end of the signal wires here. It routes up through underneath the roll bar. You can follow the original cable, and that was their recommendation. Follow that original cable. It goes up above the air filter, up and over. So obviously you can take these access panels off. These are the 2 quarter turns that you use to access your air filter. For this trim panel here, it has 1 bolt, and the rest of them are those pop-out connectors. Let's see if I can get you a little better light here. Yeah, that might help. So starts back in the corner back here, goes up along over the top of the roll bar. You can follow the original connectors along up and over the top of the... Okay, let's try that again. Evidently I pushed the power button on the camera. This is the passenger side rear, and I have the cabling exposed and the tail light exposed here, so we can get into that wiring. There's the wiring that I just ran. You can take this access panel off right here with 1 bolt, and then the rest of them are just pop-in connectors. Goes up and over the top. Let's see, right below the air intake, and then up over the top. It goes through up and over the top. In fact, you can see it's hard to hold on and take pictures at the same time, but you can see the cabling up and over the top there. I haven't wire tied anything down at all. If you take off the the air CVT intake. It gives you a little more access. I was able to slide a fish tape in there, grab onto the wire, pull the wire through, and the wire comes in along with the rest of the wiring here on the inside of the unit, and I'm just following the cable routing right on down. I had to take the console apart so I could get cable routed up through the console, and about out of wire for the light. But then it follows the wiring right up to the head of all the turn signal connectors. So anyway, that's the report for now. Lots to take apart, not for the faint-hearted. So this will be interesting to see how the video comes out. Got to read the directions really closely now, because I thought I was going to see a wire run from this turn signal over to the other, or at least from the cable over to the other brake light. That's not the case, so I'm not exactly sure what their intention is. I know one wire is the left signal, the other wire is the right signal. I'm not sure why left and right would be back here on this corner if they didn't take off and go over to the other side, but we'll read the directions a little more closely and see what it says. Goodbye. Okay, I know a lot of people don't like to admit their mistakes, but this is an instructional video, so I guess admitting mistakes is part of the plan here. So reading the instructions, and I don't want to blame it on the manufacturer. It maybe is based on some of my assumptions, but the instructions basically show you taking the passenger side light off, and then it talks about following the cable route from the front to the rear. So I got it all in. There's the cable. I kind of thought that, like a lot of cars I've worked on, the taillight cable would split here and then feed the driver's side perhaps. But that's not how Can-Am did it. They've got them wired individually. Nowhere in the instructions that I've seen does it say split the cable in half and run one side to the left and one side to the right. So now I've got to pull it halfway back out of the rig, and this is why I never wire tie anything down, but I have to pull it back out of the rig now, or at least see if I can get it split and pull the correct side over to the driver's side. Yeah, so now I've had to take this side apart too, and be able to get into these connectors and whatnot. So anyway, I just thought I'd fess up to one of my mistakes to save you guys a mistake if you were going to go this route. So anyway, cheers, see ya. Okay, time for the next report. The tail lights are all wired in right now. I thought I'd show you what their splices and whatnot look like. There's some wires you have to cut. Let's see if I can hold the light at the same time. So this is the light the wire that feeds. Whoops. This is the wire that feeds the stoplight, and then it's spliced into the kit right here with these little compression splices. I've never used that kind of a splice before, but I guess it's going to work out okay. But you know, I've got to trim and detail everything out yet. But I think I'll test it first before I put anything together. But that's what it looks like hooking in. I got to pull all this excess wire back up and loom it nicely. But that's what it looks like. And not sure what the point. Oh, on this side I have to still have to tap in for the license plate light. I'll show you that in just a second. Let me get off the ground here. I'm going to grunt and I'm an old man. There we go. License plate light. So there's the license. And the there's a little bracket, a little tab that you can put on the plastic, and then the light itself, the LED goes into that plastic tab. I washered it out a little bit. In fact, it looks like it still might not light the plate up real well, but yeah, I wanted it in the middle. I didn't want it out on the side. Again, I really like symmetry, so that's what I was shooting for. I can always move it over to the side and get it out a little farther, but those, you just use their taps. I got to come up here and tap into the tail light circuit for that. So no big. It's going to work out okay. I'll be hooking it up to a battery in a second and seeing if everything works. Okay, we're ready for our first test. Everything's all hooked up. I think it's all ready to go. I think I've wired everything correctly. A lot of work to get this far. Nothing's dressed out, nothing's put back together yet. I've just got the battery hooked up on a set of jumper wires. I haven't even got it actually up to the accessory terminal yet. But I want to make sure everything's working before I dress everything out and finish it up. So anyway, let's I don't have any help making the movie, so we'll have to figure this out ourselves. We'll look down a little bit farther here, and we'll do key on. There's key on, left turn. Left turn's good. I hope you can see that in there. Now these lights, you can hook them up two different ways. The way they come wired, they become running lights, and they run, I think it said 60% power, and then they flash obviously when you have the turn signal on. Or you can darken them up, make them black when the signal is off. And I think I may do that. Should probably go pull that pin that makes them a running light also. These halo lights up here I think are plenty of a running light. There's left turn, right turn, make sure that's working. Yeah, I am a little concerned that you won't be able to see those lights when the angle is such that they're in front of either of these bars. I can't fault the manufacturer too terribly much. Without going to a motorcycle type signal, the bigger signal that's on a stalk, and putting it out here somewhere, which might actually be a better solution. I think they'd be brighter and they'd be a little more visible. But that is literally the only place I could find to put the LEDs for the signals. So let's try the four-way flashers, see what they look like. Signal off, four ways. Yep, four-way flashers are going. Let's see, I got this on a tripod. We'll just move this around. So you can see where I mounted the turn indicators. There's one there, there's one there. So the turn indicators are both flashing. We'll go back, turn indicators off, four ways off. So they go completely off when there's no signal or four way. We'll go around to the back here. There's tail lights. Left turn, that's functioning. Right turn, that's functioning. Brake lights, let's see. I'm gonna step on the brakes. And from what I can see from up here, it looks like the brake lights are functioning. Brake in turn. Well, that still looks good to me. I'll have to look at the movie to see what they're really doing. But yeah, I can actually see them through the back here since I've got them opened up a bit. So that's all seems to be functional. 4 ways from the back. That's functional. It looks like it's working as advertised. And then of course one last feature. The horn button's right on the stock. I think I'll tie my old horn together with the new horn and see what 2 of them sounds like. That ought to be pretty obnoxious. But looks like it's time to dress it out and put everything back together. Oh, let's see. Actually, the license plate light, we didn't look at it. So we'll turn that off. We'll bring the lights on low. Oh, I don't have the license plate hooked up yet. So that's my next project. I just got to do a couple of simple taps for that. Okay, let's go back to the license plate light. Here's the taps that they give you. Whoop, where'd they go? What am I looking at here? There they are. So there's the taps that they give you. I'm not a real big believer in these kind of taps. You know, maybe soldering them on probably would have been a better solution. But I did fill them with some dielectric grease, and that's the taps right there for them. So that's how you connect into the tail lights. Hopefully I've got it all routed correctly, but with that kind of tap you can pull the plug back out. It's not a 3-way permanent tap. The only cut in it, you know, it cuts the wire, cuts the insulation rather on one wire, and then for the other one it actually has a little plug in. So anyway, let's turn the key on. We'll turn the trouble light off. We'll turn the key on. Keys on, lights are on dim. If it worked, we'll have a little LED back here. Oh my, look at that. It's even kind of a blue tint, and yeah, I'm not too sure that it's actually casting light on the plate. I'll have to wait until it's dark, and I may have to shim that out even farther so that it actually casts light on the plate. But I don't know why people worry about broadcasting a license plate number. If anybody knows, tell me, because you're going to see me going down the road or see me park somewhere. You can have my license plate number anytime you want. So what people do with them, that's fraudulent. Why people protect their license plate numbers when they put their car up on Craigslist, it just keeps me from running any kind of a Carfax check or anything, and I get suspicious. So there you go. That's what the license plate light looks like. Time to dress it up and put it together. Everything works. Okay, let's do a little tour now. So there's the front signals. I think I was saying a little earlier that as you come around to about a 45-degree angle, they get occluded. And obviously it's symmetrical. That would be true for left and right. Not real happy with that, but I'm not going to blame the manufacturer. There really wasn't any decent place other than there to put the LEDs. So that's the front of the rig. We'll come back around. There's nothing at all to see in the rear because it uses the brake lights just like a car does as turn signals. And yeah, a lot of shop cleanup to do now. And inside, yeah, let me get the shop light. Okay, I'm inside with the door closed. Let's see, can we see my knee? There's the knee. Yeah, it looks like in the seated position I've got 5 or 6 inches of clearance between the signal stock and my knee, and that's a good thing there, because when I started out with the instrument cluster the way it is, it wouldn't allow me to have that angle on the signal unit. So I ended up shimming up. Let's see if you can see them here. I ended up shimming up the instrument cluster on a number of washers so that I could get that signal unit up and horizontal, and I'll look for some plastic standoffs to do that a little later, but that helped with the thing as far as getting the stock up far enough to stay out of the way of my knee. We'll turn it on now. And it comes with blinkers. There's the left signal, right signal, turn indicators rather, and then it also has four-way flasher. If you pull out on, oh, there we go, pull out on the red lever down here, you get four-way flashers. So we'll get out and we'll have a look now. Bear with me for just a second. Okay, there's the four ways, and I suppose the driver will see them a little more from an angle about like that. And now initially the way the kit comes, the LEDs are also running lights, but I felt like I got a little more emphasis out of the signals with having them go all the way black instead of just dimmed, so that ought to get people's attention a little better. And of course in the back we're just going to see the brake lights blinking. So there we go. So that's about the end of the project, and let me think about it for a second and I'll tell you what I think about it. So that's the Ryco Moto Turn Signal Horn Kit 8103. This is the manual for it. It's fairly well written. Pictures in it are a little small and dark, and it's pretty accurate. There's only a couple of things that I might recommend that they change. They're not really coming to mind real quick, but one of the things was that you have to make sure that you split the rear signal harness apart. It comes like a zip cord, and you have to separate the two conductors and run one to the left and one to the right. And I didn't do that because I assumed that it was going to be like a lot of cars I've worked on. They make a single run to the rear and then they go horizontally over to the other light. But in this case they split in the cab, and one goes left, one goes right. So if that had been made a little more clear, that would have saved me a little bit of time. I'm not sure why they had me pull both tail lights out, because the splices that you need to make are actually under the trim panel. Now you do have to get under, I believe it's the driver's side tail light assembly in order to tap into the tail light for the for the license plate light. So I'm not sure why they had me pull that off. I wish they would have mentioned a little more clearly in the instructions to separate the zip cord out. In fact, in looking in the shop manual for the Maverick Trail, they could have done their splices right in the cab as opposed to under the trim panels. You'd still have to run one conductor back. Well, no, that's not true either. You could have done, well, for the license plate light, you have to make one tap back there for the license plate light, but the actual signals could have been done in cab, where they're always going to stay dry, and you wouldn't have had to interfere with the wiring under the rear trim panels. Everything else was pretty clear cut. Having to shim up the instrument panel was kind of a surprise to me. I will say that the company owner, Roy, his name's Roy, he was real receptive to talking to me and helping me through the process. When I told him about and showed him the pictures of how the instrument cluster interfered with the turn signal stock, he immediately volunteered to build a special bracket for me. After I'd looked at it a second time, I thought, nah, we'll just shim the instrument cluster up a little bit, and that really did the trick, so I'm happy with that. The front turn signals, I wished I could have found a place where they were spaced wider. They are fairly bright. I'm pretty happy with that. That was something I've worried about, because I've seen on some other installations where the LEDs are so dim you probably couldn't notice them for more than 100 foot away. it'd be interesting to get this out in the street and have a look at it from out there. But all in all, it's a quality product. I'm not gonna slam them at all for quality. So they'll get a 4.5 to 5 out of quality from me. The manual gets a 4. You really should, and I did. I read the whole manual through, but as I was doing the actual install, I went step by step, and that's where I missed the idea that you should separate that rear turn signal wire. But the rest of it was pretty straightforward. I tried to do it as closely to the instructions as I could, with the exception that my experience has always taught me to start from the ends and work in toward the center of everything. So that's what I did. That way I end up with all the excess wire in the cab and not having to bundle it up outside somewhere. It's a pain to trim things out up underneath the dash. If you're old and big like me, you get a sore back real quick by trying to lean up there getting wire ties and everything around it. But all in all, I think I'm going to be real happy with it. I think it's well built. The instructions are pretty good. The lady that took my order, can't remember her name off the top of my head. She was wonderful to work with. Spent plenty of time with me, and yeah, I'm satisfied with it. I'm happy with this purchase. I really did want the turn signal stock because my hand goes there automatically whenever I come to a corner. I find myself trying to signal even on a trails once in a while. I'll stick my hand out to make a turn, which is kind of ridiculous, but that's just who I am. It's a motor response of some sort, I guess. Yeah, I'm happy. So I hope the video is helpful to somebody, whether it's to help you make your choice as to which kit you want, whether you want to try the whole thing all by yourself without a kit. Could be it's too much work for you to try. It was pretty labor intensive. I didn't keep track of the hours, but I'll bet I'm upwards of 15 or 16 hours on it. But I'm kind of anal when it comes to trimming things out, getting plenty of wire ties on, trying to follow the exact wire paths along with the other looms, and cleaning things up as I go along. I had intended to get it outside and clean underneath the fenders when I had them off, but it is so cold right now, and it's supposed to have a significant amount of snow tonight. I couldn't find the energy to do that, so I cleaned it up as best as I could without taking it outside. And then the headlights, I would have liked to have adjusted the headlights with the fenders off. They're really easy to get to with the fenders off. I'm not sure how you do the height adjustment without having the fenders off. The fenders, you know, the trim pieces, the orange, I call them fenders. I think that's what the book probably calls them. They actually come off and on pretty easy. It's nothing to be afraid of. But anyway, I think that's my report, and I hope it does somebody some good. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.